That's what the desk did. 15 floors up, glass walls, 2 clocks set to London and Dubai, and muted TV looping tickers. No vault on site, no forklifts booked. Their edge lived in unallocated gold, positions, not pallets, hedged, rolled, unwound, and booked as tidy profits that didn't smell like mines or mirrors. The stakes ran through inboxes. If they took the flow tied to that ghost refinery line, the pipeline hummed. If they balked, procurement fronts would wait on credits and hubs would misbuild windows. Traders told themselves the risk was reputational, not lethal. Fines, clawbacks, career dents. They never said grid or drone at the desk. They said spread and counterparty. The first hook was price. A junior analyst, precise, sleep-deprived, flagged a 60-80 anomaly on overnight unallocated swaps that tightened like clockwork ahead of the mirror's Friday cash and snapped back by Monday close. He overlaid it with vault receipts inside their internal tool, the ones that simply marked exposure to pooled metal, and with broker prints showing a rush of origin tags tied to that East suffix. The chart looked like free money fenced by compliance language. He sent it up with the subject line ref flow timing oddities. His manager skimmed for words that start fights, sanctions, Wagner, Africa, and saw none. He saw ISO valid, our counterparty, insurance bound. He wrote back, tradable. The kid added a second chart. When they bought the spread in that window, the reversion financed itself by Monday. It looked mechanical. It looked like a permission slip. Phones warmed. Brokers pitched distressed African flow, no country, just refinery outages and temporary bottlenecks. The desk didn't ask for foundations or smokestacks. They asked if the origin met good delivery if needed. The broker said, unallocated, delivery not anticipated. Everyone relaxed. Paper, not pallets. Positions, not bars. They put on size in slices. Long, unallocated exposure against forwards that offset the book through Asia, where a metals house with a taste for shadows took the other side. The desk hit the narrowest windows, Fridays just before the mirror cashed, Mondays as green checks refreshed. PNL blossomed in steady increments. Quarter to date, the strategy became flow. Flow became identity. Identity became bonus math. Meanwhile, tells crept into the hedging. An Asian broker widened spreads precisely when HS 8413 consignments, pumps on paper, spiked through a free zone. A mid-tier bank's metals desk pulsed in night sessions right after SPFS-linked credits landed for an agri-cooperative with no fields. Nobody said collusion. They said market color. The kid still couldn't shake the overlay in his head. He mapped MAC address OUIs from downed drones against their Friday tickets. Twice in 6 weeks, clusters of identical OUIs showed up in wreckage within days of the desk's best Fridays. He printed the scatter and walked it into his manager's office. Quarter end was 12 days away. The manager didn't look up. Correlation isn't causation, he said, softer now. If compliance clears it, it's cleared. He forwarded the memo to legal with routine check. Legal replied with a paragraph about ISO validation protocols and reliance on industry standard registries. The mirror counted as industry standard. Box ticked. They sized up again. The desk's owners liked the curve, small drawdowns, tidy mean reversion, compelling narrative for investors who wanted market neutrality, while the world caught fire. Internally, they tagged the trades as ARB East, a label that said nothing and everything at once. Here S where the human hits. On a Wednesday, the kid tightened a model flag so anything touching the East origin needed a second sign-off. The manager overrode it as seasonal. The kid walked home past lit windows and watched a video of a transformer explode, blue-white, a city guttering for air. He thought about calling a regulator, then read his contract again and poured cold coffee down a drain. Meanwhile, counterparties gained the rail. When the desk unwound for a gain, the broker owed a shell, the shell owed a coup, and the messages hopped through SPFS-adjacent fields that carried equivalent value at a say. The settlement record didn't show dollars. It showed grams. It showed a promise backed by bars the desk never had to smell. A micro-story landed on a bland Friday. The kid's model pinged a perfect window at 23:54, 1 minute before the mirror's cash. He hesitated, then clicked hold. 30 seconds later, his manager leaned over and hit execute. Monday, PNL smiled. Tuesday, a crate of pumps cleared a free zone on a lane their risk engine never flagged. 2 weeks later, a substation he'd circled on a spreadsheet coughed twice and went dead. The impact rippled in spreadsheets and in rooms with humming jigs. The desk booked profits that turned into credits that hit integrator shells inside 48 hours. The hub stopped pleading and started scheduling. Motors, optics, airframes lined up on benches, and a signing utility chirped green as firmware rolled. The distance between a Friday ticket and a Monday build collapsed into habit. Owners had even gained downside. If a sanction ever tagged the ghost suffix or a linked shell, they'd novate exposure to a clean affiliate one jurisdiction over and book losses as exceptional. The strategy was a ladder of exits built before the building caught fire. The kid wasn't in the exits, he was in the stairwell. And there it was, the hairline crack. The anomaly depended on a lazy checksum in a dead man's mirror, on SPFS field cousins that slid past filters, on quartern rhythms nobody wanted to interrupt. It depended on no one lining up firmware keys, Mac batches, HS8413 hops, and desk tickets on one ugly chart. The kid had come close. He hadn't broken it, not yet. But every Friday, as the clock crawled toward 23:55, he felt the metronome tap against his ribs and wondered which line on his screen would light a runway or darken a city. The rail, swift alternatives, and gold-backed settlements. Cash leaves fingerprints, messages don't. The brief to every facilitator was simple: move value fast, never touch swift, and leave nothing a prosecutor can freeze. That pointed them to a lattice of local clearing systems, regional nets, and a Russian backbone most bankers outside certain circles pretend not to see: SPFS, Moscow's swift alternative. Same fields, different flags, fewer alarms. Stakes cut straight through paydays and power. If the rail worked, miners saw cash on market day, clinics bought diesel, and integrator hubs hit their Monday intake with parts that turned into sorties by Wednesday. If it hiccuped, salaries slipped, credit sharks circled, and the signing utility at the hub chirped into an empty room. Speed mattered. Predictable windows mattered more. Action began with netting. 2 mid-sized banks in neighboring countries kept domestic correspondent links alive through local RTGS rails. Invoices read like agriculture, irrigation assemblies, survey kits, educational platforms. The key line lived in the remittance note, an internal reference that didn't say dollars. It said weight, grams at 999.5 fineness, equivalent value at a say. You don't wire a promise like that, you mirror it. Here's how they stitched the hop. When the commodity desk unwound a profitable unallocated position, it owed a broker who owed a shell that called itself an agricultural cooperative. Rather than push an MT103, the broker's bank hit a partner API that mirrored SPFS message fields, payer, beneficiary, reference, and a pledge statement in free text. Settle against X kilograms O, fineness Y, allocated at ZZ, was the ghost refineries stamp the mirror adore. The API translated out to SPFS on one side, back into local rails on the other. No dollar correspondent, no Western screen to choke. Imbalances got squared with gold-backed settlements. Once a week, sometimes twice, couriers moved doré or minted bars through free zones under ordinary cover. Not every pledge became metal in motion. Enough did to keep confidence taut. The rest lived as rolling credits tallied by net weight across ledgers nobody audited hard. If a pledge slipped below threshold, margin terms bit, top up grams, or accept a haircut on the next agri-equipment invoice. Detail hid in weekend clocks. The cooperative, with no fields, consistently received 7-figure credits within 48 hours of Friday mirror validations. Late Sunday local time, reconciliation batches ran across the API bridge. Monday, a supplier in a third country shipped pumps under HS8413 on 30-day terms, cushioned by a bank guarantee that cited an internal risk rating, backed by commodity collateral. The collateral was a promise in grams, not a bar in a vault. The bridge itself wasn't a backdoor. It was a partner door labeled integration. Fintech logs, when investigators finally pried them open, showed endpoint calls formatted to SPFS spec, optional fields included. IP trails bounced through content delivery networks, and a whitelist that, inconveniently, included a logistics firm sharing directors with the ghost refineries shell. The system passed audits because the words on the slide said domestic clearing. The data said translated fields. Reconciliation wasn't a spreadsheet someone emailed at close. It was code. A private ledger module compared pledge references to refinery booking IDs lifted from the mirror cache, assigner accounts, and assay entries that borrowed their cleanliness from cloned ISO lines. If a shipment lagged, a basic smart contract shaved basis points off the next credit line and posted a nudge to the cooperative. No appeals, just arithmetic. Impact landed where timelines meet. Procurement fronts stopped begging. They planned. Motors under 8413 moved on a schedule keyed to pledge windows. Optics in survey kits followed. Integrator hubs set assembly rhythms to late Sunday reconciliations and Monday intake spikes. Strike tempo tightened. Where there had been gaps, there were now runs, 2-3 nights without a breath. Meanwhile, normal life bent to the same metronome. Liquidity reached trading towns like a tide. Market days swelled. Then prices crept up as militants taxed the road and shadow lenders skimmed an interest for risk. The same rail that paid a clinic's diesel refilled a parts bin labeled weather platform. The contradiction fit on a receipt. Micro stories brought the abstraction home. A mid-level operator at the fintech, Samia, noticed end-of-week spikes. Different shells, same memo, AE kit. He drafted a suspicious activity report. His boss told him the partner bank rated the client's low risk. Log it, month end. 2 days later, a warehouse 3 countries away paid cash for terrain mappers. And a week after that, a substation camera caught a swarm that flew like it had read the invoice. Pressure brushed in from capitals. Guidance notes warned banks to treat SPFS-linked messages with care, to watch for gold pledge euphemisms, equivalent value at assay, weight-based netting. Some tightened. Others offloaded volume to affiliates one hop removed from polite scrutiny. The flow flexed. Phrasing changed. The weight stayed. Investigators learned the windows. Friday, 23:55 validations. Late Sunday reconciliations. Monday guarantees. They set tripwires under those ticks. Human review for pledge language. Secondary inspection for 8413 consignments booked by forwarders tied to last quarter's flows. Real-time pings when educational platform orders matched pledge references. It didn't break the rail. It bent it. The rail's power was always the same. Value without visibility. Promises enforced by grams instead of quarts. Timing tight enough that parts met jigs before anyone finished a memo. As long as messages moved faster than outrage, the engine breathed. The trick now was to make metadata move faster than both. The disguise, HS codes, false bottoms, and agri equipment. You couldn't ship a drone through a port without someone noticing, so they shipped a farm, on paper anyway. Stakes lived in small choices at tired desks. If a motor cleared as a pump, the cheapest weapon in the war stayed cheap. If it got flagged, a swarm never formed, and a town slept through a night it wasn't supposed to have. For a customs officer on hour 9, every crate was a wager between a salary and a suspension. Action looked boring until it was. A warehouse crew slipped brushless motors into foam cradles, hid them inside molded housings, then added impellers and gaskets that could plausibly live in water. A label slid onto the carton, HS code 8413, pumps for liquids, and the box nestled among irrigation kits and polyethylene tubing. The invoice read rural water management components. The consignee, an agronomy department that did exist, it just never ordered pallets that heavy. Optics took a cleaner mask. Thermal cores rode as survey kits, complete with tripods, orange vests, and calibration charts flattened into the top layer. Airframes stripped to shells moved as polymer casings for educational weather platforms. The euphemisms weren't clever. They were tested. Every term had once survived a compliance officer's question and turned into a template. Detail hid in the rhythm of codes. Clusters of HS 8413 consignments hopped ports right before audits. ducking into free zones with generous transshipment rules. A crate logged in Mombasa on Thursday reappeared in Jebel Ali on Sunday night, sliding under fresh manifest that recycled the same SKUs with a minor typo. Nozzle becomes nozzle. Paperwork cycled by quarter because auditors check quarters. The flow learned calendars better than the men chasing it. Free zones did their job, speed trade. Pallets bounced between bonded warehouses where origin launders by movement. A shipment entered as CN and left as I after a value-added line. Packaging optimization shaved away the chance of scrutiny. End users looked safe on screens. Universities, municipal water boards, and agri-coops that rented third floors above currency exchanges. A micro story landed at dusk in a coastal shed. A junior officer popped a crate corner and found a bag of screws that didn't match the irrigation catalog. Heads wrong, thread pitch off. He checked HS 8413, called a supervisor. The supervisor skimmed the manifest, saw the insurance certificate, tapped the crate with his pen. "Don't make enemies with paperwork that clears," he signed. The screws went back in. 3 months later, trench footage caught a quad rotor with the same head pattern flashing in a prop guard. Patterns grew teeth when metadata joined the room. The same week, pump clusters surged through 2 free zones. Down drones coughed MAC address batches from vendors that never sold pumps. Organizational identifiers repeated across theaters, rolling over in lockstep with 8413 spikes. Investigators overlaid carrier scans, container numbers on free zones, CCTV, and firmware signing keys that wouldn't stop recurring. The line between irrigation paths and a Wednesday night strike got harder to ignore. Insurance made the disguise safer. Policies that said farm equipment turned future disputes into transit damage, not proliferation. Underwriters leaned on documents and the absence of red flags. The red flags lived in metadata most carriers never pulled. Time zone stamps misaligned with consignee hours, barcode checksums that drifted like the ghost refinery. IP trails on portals pinged from logistics firms tied to our mirror registries actors. When one carrier paused cover on a corridor, the flow moved to another with a higher premium. Margins absorbed it. Farmers on paper never complained. Meanwhile, schedule math kept the trick humming. The SPFS adjacent rail pushed credits within 48 hours of Friday gold validations. Shippers timed loadouts to match. Fridays carried the heaviest pump bookings. Sundays saw the most manifest edits because Monday audits liked clean ledgers. When a port tightened inspections, the flow went scenic. Dar es Salaam to Muscat, Muscat to a free zone to a Black Sea feeder whose AIS flickered at just the wrong times for just the right reasons. There were tells if you knew where to look. 8413 consignments with gross weights 10% over spec. Polymer shells and survey kits routing to the same forwarder in the same week. Return addresses resolving to shared mailrooms. A recurring consignee note, hold for lab calibration, on shipments containing nothing you calibrate. Even the screws whispered when the threads didn't match a catalog. So the first fix didn't kick down doors, it edited a risk engine. Any 8413 load above a weight threshold with accessory SKUs on a quiet list got secondary inspection, especially if routed after Sunday reconciliations. Foam got drilled, false bottoms gave way to motors. The hit rate jumped, so did the workarounds. HS 8413 shifted to cousins, hydraulic components, mechanical seals. Survey kits became terrain mappers. The words changed. The cargo didn't. Micro wins paid out as nights. A bonded warehouse flagged 3 pump pallets for a side bay drill because their weights crept above spec, and the forwarder's history matched the mirror's Friday cadence. Motors surfaced. That week's signing window opened with fewer kits than orders. A substation everyone expected to lose slept under ordinary sodium light. But the disguise learned too. A forwarder split complete sets, shells 1 week, pumps 2 later, optics the week after, to blur synchronicity. The fix adapted. Ports started scoring clusters across rolling windows, not single days, and tied those scores to firmware signer alerts. When a shell vendor without a real lab renewed certs on the first Monday of the quarter, The same Monday integrators loved. 8,413 cousins got nudged to secondary. No drama, just a drill. Here's the quiet truth the disguise kept proving. Customs engines screen for the cargo they expect, not the behavior that matters. The pipeline wore farms because farms are decent. It wore universities because education is safe. It wore calibration notes because science sounds patient. Breaking the mask meant teaching the system to care less about nouns and more about timing, weights, and who always shows up 2 days after a clean gold truck scans post 2 at noon. The leak, one barcode, 2 worlds. The barcode should have been mute, a scuff on a bar that had already changed hands twice. But when the analyst punched it into the official ISO registry, the screen flashed invalid. She tried the private mirror brokers loved because it loaded fast. Green check. Same base number, 1 extra suffix, checks them off by a single digit. 2 worlds, 1 bar. Stakes spiked fast. If this mismatch linked ghost stamps to procurement fronts, Sanctions wouldn't just name a shell. They'd ripple through banks, brokers, insurers, and free zones that had treated a cash like scripture. Miss the link, and the pipeline would grow more confident, convinced due diligence meant checking the mirror and moving on. Real families sat under that fork. Miners needing cash, port crews needing wages, cities needing lights that didn't blink out at midnight. Action started with an audit email that turned into a midnight call. The registry admin, sleep-heavy, admitted the performance cache was a contractor's clone layered on top of the real ISO database so trading desks didn't stall. The contractor had died years earlier. His scripts still scraped weekly. He'd shipped a patch to reduce false negatives that let near matches slide as perfect. Refining Solutions East, that extra word, lived in his exceptions file. Nobody ever pruned it. They pulled logs. Friday, 23, 55 local every week. Bursts of validations for East, all within 6 minutes, all from an IP block registered to a logistics firm that shared directors with a gold broker heavy on unallocated flow. The official ISO registry held no East. The mirror did, because a dead man's tolerance allowed it. A single off-by-one checksum, the kind meant to kill fakes, got softened into a courtesy that minted legitimacy. A checksum drift led to a ledger nobody was meant to see. Brokers called it an ops tool. Investigators called it a roadmap. It listed refinery bookings, shipment references, and beneficiary tags buried in notes, fields of unallocated allocations. Cross-reference those with SPFS adjacent messages carrying equivalent value at a say, and threads lit up. Agri-cooperatives, educational labs, weather platforms, the shells downstream received credits within 48 hours of those Friday validations. Fridays fed Sundays, Sundays fed Mondays, Mondays fed crates that said pumps and moved like weapons. Hardware confirmed what spreadsheets whispered. Down drones kept coughing the same firmware signing keys, cert chains that renewed on the first Monday of each quarter, even when holidays would have closed an honest office. MAC address OUIs, the identifiers baked into network cards, arrived in clusters that matched integrator batches. Overlay those clusters with mirror validations, and HS8413 spikes through specific free zones, and the pattern stopped being polite. The same week an East batch cleared green, a bonded warehouse logged educational kits. A pump pallet scanned an entry gate, and a van with Weather Lab on the side rolled into an integrator lot. Nights later, the new OUI range buzzed a frontline scanner. There was a human clock inside the code. The mirror's cache rolled once a week, so East always validated 5 minutes before rollover. Monday crosschecks always saw fresh. A junior underwriter at an insurer noticed the mirror's green didn't match the official ISO query tool. Her boss told her to trust the internal portal. The internal portal pulled from the mirror, policy bound, corridor covered. A crate of pumps slept under sodium lights. Investigators followed a weirder scene. The contractor's server, auto-renewing on a corporate card nobody cancelled, sat in a rack that also hosted a gaming company's chat. Encrypted facilitator messages rode weekend spikes of players talking about raids. Snippets recovered from a memory freeze read like heist poetry. Drop 12.5 at RSC 9995. RSC was the ghost's initials. The code had a nickname. A whiteboard in a cramped room grew dense. 2 columns, official and mirror, a river of timestamps between. Every Friday, 23:55 check got 3 arrows. To pledge message in SPFS fields, to an 8413 consignment routed through a known free zone, and to a firmware cert renewal or signing window at an integrator hub. When lines crossed too often, they stopped saying coincidence. They started running drills. The first live test was quiet. They sat on the mirror Friday night. At 23:57, East flickered green. 41 hours later, an SPFS adjacent credit hit an agri-coup. 12 more hours, a container labeled 8413 scanned into a bonded warehouse. This time, a risk rule, buried in a memo few had read, nudged it to secondary. Foam peeled, motors surfaced, no press release. Just a pallet that didn't make a van, and a signing utility at the hub, chirping to a room with fewer kits than orders. Micro stories framed the edges. A broker insisted Friday closures were operational, then booked a quarter vacation, leaving a deputy to click, confirm, on flows tied to East. A free zone guard noticed the same driver badge scan at 2 gates in 1 minute. The system shrugged. He wrote it in a pocket notebook. An insurer's junior analyst tried to escalate the East mismatch. The case closed when the internal portal screenshot showed green. Impact showed up where it hurts and heals. Strike tempo stuttered for a week. The integrator hub missed a window, cancelled a night shift, then shifted builds to match a new inland route they thought nobody watched. Ports saw the cadence and extended Sunday staffing by 2 hours. Insurers added a surcharge to any policy bound on corridors whose ISO validations didn't line up with the official registry's checksum rules. Brokers scrambled to rename East and nudge validations to a new minute. The metronome moved, it didn't vanish. What nobody forgot was how small the trigger was. A single bar's barcode, a scratch that refused to resolve, gave up a dead man's cash, a lazy checksum, and a rhythm that tied grams to strikes. The analyst who wouldn't let it go printed the drift and taped it above her monitor. "Don't chase boxes," she wrote beneath it. "Chase behavior." Weeks later, a Monday that had been circled stayed ordinary. In this first cut, ordinary was insurance, audits, and the vanishing fleet.